Hey everybody, just got back from an epic road trip using the Ford Expedition. I got home and eagerly got into the Bronco, and what did I find? A completely dead battery. Completely dead. Let's try to figure it out. Welcome to the Never Ending Weekend. So let me describe to you what happened. When I got home to this completely flat battery, nothing was going on. The door locks wouldn't open. Oh, one kind of interesting note, the passenger side exterior door handle doesn't have a keyhole in it. But anyways, I got into the car. I couldn't start anything, so I used my handy dandy NOCO booster. The booster actually couldn't detect that there was a battery there. It was so dead. And I tried multiple times to boost the battery to no avail. Drained the NOCO booster about 2 full times and then finally got it going. And the idle was all kind of crazy. I got all kinds of warning lights. The braking system was messed up. The braking was very unpredictable. It ran rough. I drove it around for about almost an hour. After that 50 minutes, I turned off the engine and the battery was completely flat again. No, it didn't click over, it didn't do anything. So I got it towed with Ford roadside assistance to the dealership, where on initial analysis, they found that there's a parasitic draw on the batteries. They were saying something was pulling about 3 amps from the battery, even though the car was not on. And to no one's surprise, because I have so many modifications to the engine and the fact that this is an electrical problem, they wouldn't cover any of the exploratory service to find out what the problem was, and they wouldn't even replace the battery under warranty. So I decided to diagnose it myself. Luckily, or maybe hopefully, the procedure is pretty straightforward. But first, let's look at the tools that you'll need. At the very least, you'll need a new battery. That was $325 from the dealership, quite expensive, and $65 for them to install it or drop it in. But anyways, now we have to measure the current from the electrical system into the battery and disconnect all the fuses one at a time until we find where this electrical leak is coming from. And that's if it's something from the stock componentry. If we get through all the fuses and we haven't found the draw, then we start disconnecting all the auxiliary components that I added on. Luckily, I added a lot of quick connects. Also, they're all attached to the auxiliary switches, while most of them, the winch isn't. And the auxiliary switches turn off with the car, so I doubt I'll find anything there. Anyways, what you'll need is a multimeter, just to run tests and figure out what the problem is. You need to get one that does amps, and not every multimeter does. And the range that you need to get is something that'll go up to 10 amps is probably good enough, but to be safe, to cover every circumstance, 20 amps is something you would need. So why I picked this multimeter, it has a bunch of different settings, kind of has everything you need ever. Goes up to 20 amps like I was talking about. Also has a bunch of different settings that a lot of multimeters don't have, as well as it has a non-contact voltmeter, even has a flashlight for dark situations, magnet on the back, kickstand, kind of has everything. Even measures the temperature. The first thing you want to do is disconnect your battery. Now, I got shocked a lot when I was a kid, trying to do some home electrical stuff by myself without knowing what I was doing. So electricity scares the crap out of me. But you don't have to worry too much about a car battery. It really doesn't have enough power to shock you, even if you touch both leads at the same time. I'm not going to test it. I suggest you don't either, but know that you probably won't get shocked. You might feel a tingling, but there are a few things you need to be aware of when handling a car battery. One of them is don't touch the 2 leads together with any kind of metal. If your battery's old, corroded, has issues, if there's sparks around, there's certain fumes that can come from a battery that could create a small explosion. But in a newer car, you don't have to worry about these things. But still, take precautions when you're handling a car battery. So first thing is that we have to disconnect it, and always disconnect the negative first, because once you disconnect the negative, if you touch the positive to another piece of metal by mistake through a tool or whatever, it won't create an issue. Mind you, if you take the positive off first, that's safe as well, but you just have to be careful not to touch anything, and you don't want sparks or to short anything. So take the negative off first. And then we're going to test with the multimeter and see if there's anything draining the battery, what's referred to as a parasitic draw from some component in the electrical system. Okay, I have my multimeter here, and because I don't know what the draw is going to be, just for safety reasons, I'm going to start with a 20 amp channel. Here's my multimeter. I'm going to run it in series, so touch red to the connector and the black to the post, and then see what kind of draw we get. The negative post has so many things connected to it, doesn't have a lot of slack, so I can't really move it out of the way, which is why the t-shirt is under there. So the initial draw is very high, almost 7 amps there. I have the step sliders that just opened up. I guess it's going through a cycle, an initializing cycle. Still at 5 amps, which is really high, considering the car's off, screens are off, everything's off. I can hear some clicking from the engine. It's down to 3.4 right now. And it shouldn't really read over, if everything was normal, it shouldn't read over 50 milliamps. Should be next to nothing. Dealership said that there was a 3 amp pull, and here it is, it's settled at 3.3. I guess the next step is to start disconnecting things. A few more clicks from the engine, now it's at 2 amps. If the problem is with the stock system, I could start removing a bunch of fuses from the fuse box. I'm down to 1.1 amps now. If it's something I attached, it'd probably be easier just to disconnect each thing one at a time and see if that pull is gone. It's so strange. Things are just slowly turning themselves off. I don't know. Looks like it stopped at 300 milliamps. 100 milliamps now. Looks like it's staying steady at 100 milliamps, which is not a lot, and much lower than the 3 amps the dealership was saying. Let's see. Make sure everything is off. So I can't find the issue. I'm not going to bother pulling out all the fuses right now. I'm just going to go for a drive, make sure everything is okay with the current battery, check its voltage, and then make a decision from there. Everything seems okay. Turning on normally. Oh. These tall tires. Okay, car battery typically has 13.5 to 14.5 volts while running, and about 12.5 to 13 volts when everything is off. That looks good. Just gonna drive around for a bit. I haven't been driving around too much in the Bronco for quite a while now, over 30 days. But I gotta say, I do miss the rugged and toughness that the Bronco makes you feel. I don't necessarily miss all the rattles and wind noise and tire noise, but yeah, I do actually miss the Bronco.
One eternity later.
Okay, it's been about 40 hours. Let's see if everything goes well. Door's opening. That's a good sign. Okay. Everything's turning on. That's a good sign. Before we start her up, let's look at the battery indicator. 12.3 volts. Then normal. It's kind of low compared to yesterday. Starts up no problem. Yeah, looks good. So it looks like it's running fine. I'm just going to chalk up the whole thing to having it parked for too long. I guess the Ford dealership diagnosed the problem wrong, thinking that there was a parasitic draw, but I think it's just initial draw from the different components and such. I'd like to make a shout out and give thanks to all the guys on the Bronco 6G forum for helping me out and commenting on my post about what was happening with my Bronco. All things considered, this was probably the best case scenario. I didn't really have to repair anything, but we'll see. Hopefully that lasts. Have a great weekend, everyone.